Hi, my name is Steve Gilbert. I'm an intermediate science teacher at the Duke Knott and the Toronto District School Board. And I am here to talk about the idea I presented for my STAO Connects project. I also teach junior as well, and so I decided I was going to put together a junior space unit. It's called Mission to Mars. And we, in our room, we have a makerspace, or we are a makerspace, and we have a range of tools available to students, from the very traditional woodworking tools to the more modern 3D printing and modeling software tools, as well as a range of electronic tools to help kids facilitate the kind of making that they want to do in our science program. So my particular unit I'm presenting looked at what it might mean for us as a culture to colonize Mars. There's a lot of conversations around colonizing Mars right now. So on the science side, we looked at some of the atmospheric conditions in terms of what we already know about Mars from the research we've gathered, and had conversations with kids about how life would be different there for us from a kind of physiological or biological sense. We also opened our conversation talking about some of the social aspects of life on Mars. So what would a community look like on Mars? Who would be included, who would be excluded in this colony idea? Who would get to go and who would not get to go? Which brought about some really interesting dialogue with our students. In terms of the opportunities for students, I offered 4 different ways they could demonstrate their learning. So one was to design their own spacesuit, and so what have we already created for life in space, and what would you include in your spacesuit given the atmospheric conditions on Mars that we already looked at. Another one was to design a 3D tool. So we have a 3D printer in our room. So I had students model using 123D design a replica of the 3D tool that the International Space Station printed in space in microgravity, and it's a working ratchet, and so kids were able to kind of gain a bunch of technical skills, but as well the ability to print a real tool that works and can work with a real socket. Then we looked at, also a 3D printing project was to design a shelter on Mars. So we looked at 3D printed houses that are currently being developed here, or the software and the tools to develop 3D printed houses here, and how that might work in Mars's and in the atmosphere on Mars, given the differences in gravity. And also starting to think about the social elements of what a shelter could look like and how people would interact within those spaces. Is it different? Is it the same? And the other one we looked at, or the other opportunity I gave to students, was to design a robotic attachment to help a vehicle move and contend with the various terrains on Mars. So we had access to the LEGO EV3 platform, and we had students design computer programs or EV3 programs that would, first of all, make the robot move around this terrain, but they also built the terrain. So we took foam insulation and created different kinds of angles and planes and different kinds of textures using glue, so that the robot would have difficult types of terrain that it would have to contend with. And then they had to design and make an attachment for the robot and test it out and see if they could get their robot to move through this space and this terrain.